Hey up all, I'm Propagandist, and once again I'm back with some more Girls and Panzer related content, specifically in relation to the latest instalment in the franchise Girls and Panzer Das Finale. So, remember of course, if you've been following Propagandist for the last few days now, the last couple of videos I posted have also been related to Das Finale, in which I've been basically examining different aspects of this, the latest instalment. So in the first one, of course, I looked at what we know about the storyline of this latest instalment in the Girls and Panzer franchise, and then in the second video I looked at BC Freedom Academy, at its characters, at its tanks, what we basically know about this opponent. But of course, as promised, there is one more particularly notable aspect of Das Finale based on what we know from the first part of it, which has been aired in Japan. I think one thing that I basically haven't covered yet, and which I'm going to be covering right here. So, one thing actually to just sort of start us off here, before I give my usual notices, things like that. As of Girls and Panzer Der Film, the Orai Senshido force consists of 8 tanks and their respective crews. So you have the 5 protagonists of Anglerfish team with their Panzer IV, you have the Hetzer crew, Turtle team, the Student Council, you have GuP team who are the volleyball club, the History Otakus in the Hippo team, you have the Anteaters who are the video game nerd girls, you have the Leopons, the automotive enthusiast girls, you have the student, kind of the prefect sort of hall monitor type team in that constitutes the Mallard team, and then finally, of course, you have the Rabbit team who are the first years. So, as of course their film, there have been 8 teams that make up Orai Senshido Force, but this has changed now apparently. With the first instalment of Das Finale, apart from introducing a new plotline, new opponent, things like that, Orai Girls Academy now has a new 9th team to add to its Senshido lineup, and this team is called Shark Team. And boy, let me just say right now, do they look very, very interesting or what? So that's what we're going to be covering here in this particular video. We're going to be looking at Orai's newest team, we're going to look at its crew members, and of course we're going to look at the most important point of all, what sort of tank are they going to be operating in Das Finale. So, usual notices of course before I get cracking on into things. I'm over on the left side of the screen of course, just so I can overlay static imagery to the right. That of course leads me into my second point, which is that of course there will be no actual sort of in-anime footage here. Everything you see will just be static imagery, just for copyright reasons. Obviously I don't want to get the video blocked by Bandai for content ID claims, anything like that, as was the case of course with my first attempt at posting an Anzio OVA review, which you might remember from a while back. So yes, static imagery, no footage. Thirdly, of course, I'll be referring frequently to a Word document on my screen, so if I frequently glance away from the camera towards the screen, that's basically what I'm looking at, because the thing is I've got about, 3 or 4 pages of notes here, so I need to get through all of that and make sure I don't forget anything, so that's why I'll be glancing frequently away from the camera, just to, see where I'm up to and what I need to talk about. Fourthly, of course, this video will finally contain some spoilers, but then again, that's been the case with a lot of my Girls and Panzer videos, so if you don't know anything about this latest instalment, Das Finale, being ruined for you, then now's your time to actually look away from the screen right now. In fact, now's your time to navigate away from the video in general. But otherwise, if you are not if that's not a problem for you, then let's actually get to it. Now, I stumbled across this new team entirely by accident. You see, a couple of weeks ago I was actually browsing on the Girls and Panzer wiki, when I basically came across this new entry under the Orai Senshido Force pages. So, as you know, if you haven't been to that wiki, of course, as you can guess, the page for Orai Academy has all the various teams listed. So I was looking through there when I saw that there was a new 9th entry, Shark Team. And a quick perusal of Crunchyroll news articles later, and that, verified pretty much what I'd seen there, that Das Finale indeed features a new team on the Orai side. So, the first, perhaps most striking thing to note about the new Shark Team is its theme. So typically in Girls and Panzer, each team that Orai fields has a very distinct theme to it. So, after all, thing is, this is a show that has so many supporting characters that realistically they can't develop all of them in depth, so instead they have to go for the approach of just making each team as memorable as possible. And a key way of doing that is to give them perhaps unique appearance, unique sort of personality traits, or characteristics, things like that. So I've already alluded to the themes of some of the other teams just a second ago. So for example, you have Turtle Team being the Student Council, Hippo Team being the History Otakus, GuP Team being the volleyball players, for example. So what's clear from the variety of images available is that Shark Team is going to consist of 5 crew members drawn from ORI School Ships, the ORI School Ships Naval Studies Department, or the ship course, whatever you want to call it, depending on what translation you're relying upon. Now, that's the thing about the lore of the GuP world, which the School Ship War OVA actually talked about. There are different courses that are actually offered on board these giant floating educational establishments. So, whilst most of the ORI girls are what you call kind of general course students, there are also a body of students known as either naval students or ship course students, and they are training to basically become seafarers. And the thing is, in the kind of Girls and Panzer lore, the day-to-day responsibilities of ship course students actually include operating the school ship itself. So it's interesting to see that this time we're getting a team who will be drawn from the ranks of ORI's massive sailor girls, essentially. But there is more to Shark Team than that. Their overall theme isn't so much a sailor theme as it is something else, something much more unique, at least in my eyes. Now, one thing I've seen a few references to in Das Finale, based on various materials and things that I've read, is something called Bar Donzoko, or Bar Lower Depths, I think it translates to in English. And judging by some of these screenshots that I've taken from various trailers, various bits of promotional material that are available on YouTube, as well as odd snippets of info, Bar Donzoko appears to be this rather, how should we say, seedy-looking student club or dive somewhere in the depths of the ORI school ship, and apparently the Shark Team girls frequent this place. Now, there have been a couple of occasions in Girls and Panzer where we've been given a kind of snapshot into the interior of the ORI school ship. I mean, firstly, we saw parts of it in episode 7 of the TV series, when Sairi and the Rabbit team actually went in search of new tanks to supplement ORI's fighting force. But then in the School Ship War OVA, we also saw some more of the vessel's interior as well. But like I say, that was just a snapshot of things. The ORI school ship is pretty damn massive, let's be honest. It's not even the biggest ship out there, but it's still pretty huge. It's a floating city, for heaven's sake. And according to what I've read about Das Finale, there are some darker and altogether not so lovely places aboard this vessel. And one of these dark and not so nice places seems to be given a rather interesting name. It's referred to as the Johannesburg of ORI. I'm guessing that's a jab at crime rates in that particular South African city. I'm not sure what native residents of Johannesburg will think of that, of course, but you get the picture that's trying to be painted here. This is a part of the ORI school ship that is home to a lot of the ship course's more kind of delinquent students, to put it that way, including the girls of Shark Team of the aforementioned Bar Donzoko. So, a quick aside, check out the Kiss impersonator in the background of this picture that I'm showing on the screen round about now. And so, you know, just getting beyond that, it's down here in Bar Donzoko where Anglerfish Team comes across the girls of Shark Team. So, if you want to know what Shark Team's theme is, then for starters you just need to consider the name of each individual girl here. Now, I'm going of course by what's on the Girls and Panzer wiki, but these names are accurate as far as I'm aware. So, we have Shark Team's captain, Ogin, or Tornado Ogin, apparently, as her crewmates supposedly are going to refer to her. So she's apparently going to be the captain of Shark Team. Now, I'm just going to say right now that I absolutely love this character's design. I mean, I'll be honest, I love all of Shark Team's character designs, but this one really leaps out at me in particular. I mean, note the long captain's overcoat, the sea boots, even that pipe she's holding. That's all part of her and Shark Team's overall theme. Then we have this character, Rum, aka Explosive Cyclone Rum. Yeah, I know what you might be thinking here. I'd like to know who devised these characters and what kind of process actually went into deciding upon these delightfully eccentric monikers, shall we put it that way. So, judging by the pictures I have of her, Rum appears to be Shark Team's driver. I've got a few other pictures of her where she's quite often either holding a bottle or at least has one close by or on her person somewhere. So the thought that Shark Team might have an alcoholic driver on their hands actually raises some amusing possibilities. In particular, I want to quickly also show this picture. I think the person holding the bottle in this image is Rum, though I can't be sure. but just look at the name of that drink there. That's Captain Anne Bonny Rum, apparently, would you believe? Again, note that down, it's all part of the overall theme of Shark Team. So next up we have this character here, Great Waves Flint, who from some of these shots always seems to have a microphone in her hand. So my guess would be that she's going to be Shark Team's communicator slash radio operator, whatever you want to call it. Flint seems a bit of an interesting name, and in light of what we can surmise about her team's theme, my guess would be that the name is a reference to Captain Flint from Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, so once again, all part of the theme. Then we have this character here, aka Sargasso Murakami, who, let's be honest, looks like a bit of a tough cookie, this one. I mean, not that her other teammates don't, of course. But certainly from some of my pictures, my guess is that this one's a bit maybe of a hot-headed, quick-tempered sort of character. Since we've already got a captain, a driver and a communicator, then that leaves Murakami with one kind of real position, gunner slash loader. Note that she's both of those. There's a reason for this, which we'll of course come to in a little bit. Then finally, the fifth member of the new Shark Team is this character. Now, her name that she's referred to is Cutlass, but she also has this nickname that's a bit of a mouthful, and the nickname is Fresh Whitebait Rice Bowl Cutlass. Yeah, I've no idea why this one was chosen, or what kind of thought process went into that name, but whatever, I'll go with it. Thing is, you know, Girls of Panzer is not renowned for realism or anything like that. It's meant to be kind of absurd. And Cutlass 2 is apparently going to be a gunner slash loader for Shark Team, but the screenshots also tell us that she's also Bar Donzoko's barkeep, essentially. But, of course, the big question is, what sort of tank will Shark Team be operating? Now, here is where it gets very, very interesting. So, after collating a variety of information, of screenshots from various sources, Shark Team will be operating none other than a World War I era British Mark IV tank, specifically the male variant of the vehicle. Now, funny little historical fact here, but British tank designs in World War I usually saw male and female versions of the tanks being drawn up and produced, the key difference between them essentially being the type of armaments they were equipped with. So male tanks, I think, were typically armed with the heavy guns that were needed for kind of breaching enemy armour or enemy defences or whatever. But getting back to Das Finale, this is quite a unique choice of tank, because along with the Renault FT, which I mentioned in the previous Das Finale related video on BC Freedom Academy, the Mark IV will be, well, let's put it this way, it'll be joining a small club of older kind of pre-interwar period vehicles that have been featured in Girls on Panzer, and that's what makes it such a unique choice. Most of the tanks that you have seen fielded in Girls on Panzer, not just by ORI but by a lot of the teams, they tend to be kind of 1930s or World War II vehicles, with the exception perhaps of Duck Team's Type 89, which was first fielded actually in the late 20s, historically speaking. So by that measure, the Mark IV would seem like a hopelessly obsolete, outmatched kind of vehicle. But the thing is, as we all know, if you've watched the TV series, if you've watched their film, you know, of course, that anything can happen in Girls on Panzer. So you'll know, of course, that the size and firepower of a particular tank ultimately doesn't really matter. What matters is how the crews actually operate their machines. Thing is, I imagine that even a tank as old as the Mark IV probably still has sufficient firepower to damage tanks like the Renault FT or even the Type 89. I mean, don't quote me on that, I'm no expert of, you know, tanks and their ballistic statistics or whatever. So just because it's an older machine doesn't necessarily mean it won't be of some utility in the match against BC Freedom, but still, the choice to actually have a Mark IV as Shark Team's tank is also pretty significant, as once again, it does play into their team theme, and I'm not just referring to that brazenly obvious flag you can see flying from the radio equipment. It's also significant because back in World War I, when the British were fielding tanks for the first time, they didn't originally refer to them as tanks by that name, they were actually called land ships, and that of course links in perfectly to Shark Team's theme. So let's be honest, there is no way you could have failed to have put all of this together by now. In fact, if you hadn't already guessed it by the very first clues, then, I mean, come on, seriously. Shark Team's theme isn't just a nautical one, they're a distinctly pirate-themed team. And that's why I am honestly finding myself already falling in love with this team before I've even had the chance to see them actually in action. I freaking loved pirates as a kid, and I still have a love of all things maritime today as an adult. You know, as a kind of university sort of researcher, I have kind of swapped the old sort of 18th century pirates now for kind of modern day pirates from, say, Somalia or somewhere. Just a humorous little anecdote. So to have a pirate-themed team in Girls and Panzer is, in my books, a pretty damn good choice on the producer's part. So I really hope, in all honesty, that Shark Team turns out to be one of the most entertaining crews in ORI Centured O-Force. I really do. Their character designs are brilliant, at least in my opinion, and based on what we can see in some of these images I've accumulated, they kind of stand out, I think, from the rest of the ORI crews. Thing is, most of ORI's girls tend to follow that sort of, you know, they tend to generally follow a particular theme, and that is sort of adorable / moe. But Shark Team undoubtedly, while Shark Team undoubtedly has an element of moe to them to an extent, they also look rather badass and hot-headed at the same time, in my opinion. So I really hope that that's what they're actually like on screen, because it would make for some really interesting interactions between them and the rest of the ORI force. Just as a kind of aside as well, I also would like to see if, you know, they're any good sort of tactically speaking, you know, because that's the thing. There's a lot of ORI's crews, you know, whilst they're not by any means incompetent when it comes to Censured O, they're not always brilliant either. They do make mistakes and things like that, and you know, it's understandable why they would. But obviously, you know, Miho, as commander of the ORI Censured O-Force, she kind of stands out by a mile as being the most tactically and strategically competent out of all of them. So what I would think would be interesting is to see maybe a team on ORI's side where its captain and its members are perhaps as tactically and perhaps even strategically unique and competent as Miho is. That would, I think, potentially make things kind of interesting. So it would kind of act as a bit of a balance to the fact that Shark Team is in a bit of a shit tank. So yeah, I'm hoping, of course, for Shark Team to be badass, but I'd also would be interested in seeing how good they actually are in action, whether, you know, they make good tactical and strategic decisions, you know, do they pull off some pretty successful but crazy stunts, things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. So that's Shark Team then, everybody. All I've seen of them, of course, are the pictures that are available online, but already they're in prime position, I think, to potentially become one of my favourite teams in Girls and Panzer. More and more information and imagery of these characters is steadily becoming available, including this cheeky little number, which has given me the perfect opportunity to use a pretty clickbaity thumbnail for this video. Yes. But other than that, of course, thank you for watching then, everybody. Hope you found this rather interesting and informative. So, thing is, as I said, of course, in my first Das Finale video, the one where I was looking at sort of storyline and what we know of the plot, of course, you know, my initial kind of aim was to do these 3 videos as a kind of initial run, and of course, you know, if any further notable information becomes available about Das Finale, anything I can make a video out of, then I'll undoubtedly think about maybe doing more content on it. Definitely, of course, I think once part 2 of Das Finale eventually gets released, whenever that may be, I'm not actually sure. Just getting a bit gas from my tea there. But yes, obviously, if and when that gets released, well, I don't know why I'm saying if, it is actually a matter of when it gets released. But of course, when that gets released, there might be new stuff to talk about there. So, I'll be keeping an eye, of course, on how Das Finale progresses with each instalment that comes out. So you may well see more Das Finale related content here on Propagandist in the hopefully not too distant future. Plus, of course, there may well be plenty of other opportunities for Girls and Panzer content more generally. Like something about this Girls and Panzer PS4 game, Dream Tankery Match, or whatever it's called, that I'm hearing more and more about, for example. Is it Dream Tankery Match or is it Dream Tank Match? Something like that. Who knows? We'll see. Just depending on how much information there is and whether I can make something of it. So thank you again, everybody, for watching this. I'll start to wrap up here. So if you're completely new to Propagandist and you aren't aware already, this is actually my second channel. I have a primary channel called General Red Strategist, where I do a lot of gaming content, so if you're into that kind of thing, you can go and check that out. There's also a couple of social media links associated with that, a Facebook page and a Twitter page. Links to all of these will be in the video description. You can also find the General Red Strategist channel if you go onto the Propagandist channel and look under the links to the right, you'll find it there. But other than that, thank you once again, everybody. I keep repeating that, but it's true. Can't say it enough. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and hope you're all up for joining me, hopefully for some more Girls and Panzer content at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, as well as any other sort of anime-related content that I decide to do. I need to get back to Ruby Volume 5, because I've not watched any more of those episodes actually for a while. Also, I need to take a look at some of the animes that other people have recommended to me. So yeah, other than that, before I start to ramble, goodbye, everybody.